Hello, 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 hello. Hi, everyone. Hi, and welcome. Sorry, I was just putting out the fact that we are live. Um, hello. What is this? This warning, the stream is what? Open studio. What does this say? Warning is lower. It's lower. I don't know. Friday couldn't have come faster. Hello. Hi, John. Hi, Melly. How are you? I don't know we recommend you use a stream bitrate of 68. Okay, so can I change the bitrate now? I don't know. I'm already in the stream. I don't think I can do that. Output bitrate 68. Let's try. Apply. All right. Whatever. I don't know. I don't know how to stream. Anyways, good morning, y'all. Hi, Kimberly. Jesse, good morning. Hello, hello. I have coffee. So I have a Captain America mug. I made myself a little chocolate latte. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to go back into the John Ramsey podcast that we did in yesterday. We're going to try to get through it. God knows I'm going to stop it every 5 minutes. So all I know is, that's the plan for today. I do want to give you guys a little heads up as far as live stream goes. We do, on a different time zone, 11 p.m. I am so sorry. Hopefully the sultry sounds of my voice can put you to sleep. So today's my kids' last day of school before Christmas break. So I don't know. Hi, Cuff. I don't know when I'll be able to go live next. I've already talked to my husband, maybe on Sundays. I've noticed that we have some people who've joined our membership that get members only lives. So that's very exciting. Also, I do want to make an announcement. I accidentally put up a post that was supposed to be for members only, and it was for the public. I never, ever, 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 ever want to make anybody feel bad about not being able to be a member. Just showing up here, just talking in chat, liking a video, sharing a video, just viewing, not even engaging is so incredibly supportive. So memberships are it's just an extra. Like, I'm not trying to push them. If that's something that people want to do, then that's what they want to do. But I never want to make anybody feel bad because they're not members of the channel or anything like that. So I just wanted to put that out there. With that being said, let's switch over. We are going to get on with the podcast because we didn't finish it yesterday. And yeah, let's get going. Let me know what you guys... That's a lot of evers. It's a lot of evers because I don't ever want to make anybody feel bad. Hi, Mr. Pike. Good morning, my love.
And after a couple of years, they decided, we can't do it. We don't think that way.
Hi, Anthony.
We're, military, industrial, government contractor. We don't know how to deal in the consumer world. Mm-hmm. And so they were in the process of selling us and 4 or 5 other companies they'd bought to try to change their model. And they engaged a conversation, I guess, with GE, and GE was going to buy us, it looked like. And I'm sure, and I don't fault them, great company, but this Ramsey guy is a
lot of baggage.
It's big baggage. This isn't going to work. And I didn't work for another, 5 or 6 years because I couldn't get a job. We were scraping by, basically, selling assets, selling our home, just trying to create an income that way. But how could I have profited from this? That's absurd.
I think people would just look at the books. I think they would say, "Oh,
well, the first book, we did get a."
I mean, they did make books, right? And they did make documentaries, and they did make, there were a lot of different things that were associated with JonBenét. So to think that they didn't make any money at all, I think is, I think they made money. Do I think they set out to make money off of their daughter who passed away? No. Or at least I would like to think no, because I don't want to think that that's anybody's intention,
what do we call it, an advance. And that kept us going for a while financially. By the time I wrote the second book, the whole book market had changed and the advances just weren't there. But I did that second book mostly to help people because I'd gone through this trauma of course, the loss of a child. My faith, was really challenged. How could God
Oh.
let this happen to a child? And the book I wrote
You know
was
what's
really
interesting about that is I actually had a moment when my daughter was hospitalized last year. Um, I have always been, I grew up Catholic. I was born and raised Catholic, and I grew up that way. And I pray every night. I'm more of a spiritual person now than a Catholic. I believe that there's something bigger than us. I'm a very spiritual, hi, John. I'm a very spiritual human being. And I have to say that when my daughter was hospitalized, there were a lot of people who were like, oh my God, we're praying for you. Because we had no idea what was going on, right? We had no idea if it was a brain tumor or if she had like if she was having a stroke or a brain bleed or an aneurysm or anything like that. And people were like, we're praying for you. And I'm like, at least somebody is, because I can't find myself to pray right now. I really can't. I can't bring myself to do it because how do I pray to the being who's allowing this to happen? Like I really struggled in that moment. And it's interesting for him to talk about that because he it's not even 8, but I'm here. Oh my God, Anthony, thank you. And it's interesting because your faith does get shaken. I know some people, my husband's aunt lost a child and her faith became stronger. My grandmother has lost 2 children and her faith has become incredibly stronger. And I've had some issues with my children and my faith has kind of gone the other way. I've had issues kind of managing like this area. I went to an all boys Catholic school for 12 years. Now I'm non-practicing. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not practicing either. I believe that there's something bigger than us. I am a very spiritual human being. I got crystals, right? I like tarot cards. I believe that if we are open to it, we can accept like how do I explain it? Like I don't know. We can talk to like spirit guides, I guess, and other things like that. But like I'm open and accepting to listening to things. But yeah, as far as like true Catholicism goes, I'm not a practicing Catholic at all.
I felt very compelled to try to help people with the process. The journey I went through wasn't to make money at all.
You know what's interesting though about John is I wonder if maybe it was possible that if somebody did it in the house and like say it was Burke and Patsy did cover it up and maybe John truly is in the dark and doesn't know, I don't know. Could that be possible?
A lot has had to have changed over 30 years. Like when you
She
think about,
looks, I mean, I've never seen her before, but she is such a pretty girl.
like, you're in it day one
I
in
like
the
her
house.
vibe.
You think it's a kidnapping.
Hi, Chab.
How do you think differently now about the ransom note than you did day one?
Well,
Like,
That's true. He doesn't really ever talk about the knots either.
at least I have to imagine, like, if it were me, I imagine that I've like picked this thing apart 10 ways to Sunday.
it didn't make any sense, first of all.
I know in some of the interviews they bring up for Patsy that it goes back to the note, and I think one of the reasons they keep those who believe she wrote it perpetuate the idea that she wrote it is because it seems like it's not a clear like answer or direction of like how much of the note she saw.
So we discussed this yesterday, and I have to disagree with this point because it seems like she wrote it because the handwriting was so similar. That's the issue, is not the fact that she read it like on the 911 call. It's the fact that when they put up her handwriting next to the ransom note's handwriting, it's almost identical.
Because like initially she's, it's like your daughter, we have your daughter, and then she goes up and looks, but then she talks about later looking out the window and seeing that it's a marked car and being concerned. And people will say, oh, how did you know that, that was later on the note? People will say, oh, when she calls 911, how does she know how it's signed if she only saw the first page? you know, 30 years ago.
Yeah, I don't know. It was chaos that morning, and I really thought I could get JonBenét back. I really did. We'd arranged,
That's not answering the
I don't
question,
have
though.
$118,000 laying around, but a friend of mine who was my banker got my ATM limit on my Visa card
Jacked up.
jacked up. And I gave that card to a friend, I don't know who it was, somebody was there, and said, go get the money. And they came back and didn't get the money. And I was like, why didn't you get the money? They're like, well, no, we don't need to do that yet. But anyway.
Why 118? That's something that everyone's
Well,
obsessed with.
yeah, there's,
Don't get
it
in
meant
trouble,
something
Chad.
to the killer.
What do you think it means? Like, I mean,
Well,
again,
the only number that correlates that I know of is my bonus that year from Lockheed was 118,000, and it was paid in January. Now we're in December.
Right. So that's the thing about the handwriting too, is the fact that handwriting is not. It's like handwriting analysis is not. It's subjective, right? And they used handwriting experts, and that's something that we can say. I'm not a handwriting expert. It's not something that could necessarily be used, like in a court of law, because I guess handwriting. I talk about it in my video. It's not like a scientific thing, and it's open to interpretation, but it's pretty damn similar, I have to say.
It was on my pay stub
did you have those somewhere in the house?
oh yeah, I'm sure laying around somewhere.
Did they ever find them?
I don't know.
So
Somebody
it comes
was-
back to somebody who's like, so clearly, I mean, clearly they know she's in the basement. They're not actually looking to get the money, but you think it was more of a message?
I think it was a mix. I mean, why not $1 million? Why not 500? Why not a big number?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big number, but doable. And why 118? Why not 100? Why not 200?
150.
It meant something to somebody.
People they just pick it apart.
Oh, I know it.
This
And
is what
it's
happens.
crazy.
As they
It's
should.
like
It's
I
a
was
ransom
criticized
note.
for disturbing the crime scene when I found JonBenét. Oh my God, he moved the body. If you're a parent, what would you do? You'd pick up your child. I was hoping,
it
I
was
was
Anthony.
relieved. I found her. Thank God. Took the tape off her mouth and tried to untie her wrists. I couldn't because they're tied so tightly. I didn't see the garrote. It was so deeply embedded in her throat. Oh, he disturbed the crime scene. That was wrong. It's like,
Points to Patsy, yeah.
that's laughable to even say something like that. Of course you would.
I do have to say, of all of the things that's what I don't understand. Like, and here's the thing, Cuff. Like, these were not stupid people, right? So to put $118,000 into the ransom note, to me, I mean, that would point directly to you. You know what I mean?
And have you ever been back in?
The house? No.
Would you ever go back in?
No.
I wouldn't.
We couldn't.
I can understand.
Initially, just wasn't even. A friend of ours helped
That's
us
true,
move,
Mr. Pike.
packed up all our stuff, and we moved to Atlanta, which was our home. That's where my family was. That's where Patsy's family was. JonBenét was buried there. My oldest daughter was buried there. So I was accused in the media of fleeing to Atlanta, but
Yeah,
was
so
home.
that's something that people talk about is they say, oh, so I mean, day one, you know, they find JonBenét, and within the hour, John's on the phone saying, I've got to get to Atlanta, and people say it was for a business meeting. Like, what was that?
Well, that's not quite the way it was.
Yeah.
But there's so much misinformation out there.
Yeah.
Lucia, hi.
It's hard to even
No.
combat any of it. But
No, John, I'd like to talk about this because here's the thing. So this is a point of contention that I would like to bring up about this video. So their story was the day after Christmas, they were flying to Michigan to go to their second home. But Detective Linda Arndt would tell you that he called a plane and then told her that he had a business meeting in Atlanta. So this would be a good time for her to say, okay, well, here I have conflicting stories. Which one was it? Like, I really just wish in interviews, and only in this, I'm not critiquing her interview style. But if John Ramsey sits down in front of you and he says, I'm an open book, ask me whatever you want, I just wish somebody would sit and just like press on those inconsistencies in the story. Linda Arndt said you called the planes because you needed to go to Atlanta because you had a meeting. The story was you guys were getting up to go on a plane to go to Michigan to vacation at your second home. I need to know right now, which one was it? Answer the question.
Atlanta was our home. We had a family cemetery plot.
Yeah.
That's where JonBenét was going to be buried. My oldest daughter was killed
Hi,
4 years
Pats.
earlier in a car accident. She was buried there. That was our focus, to get JonBenét buried, taken care of. Boulder was not our home. We had a house there, had a job there, but it wasn't a home.
But were you going to Michigan the next day? That was okay. If you go back through all of their stories, they specifically say that Patsy Ramsey got up at 5:30 a.m. to get her cup of coffee, to get ready because they were going to Michigan. Yeah, I don't know what happened to Linda Arndt. I actually believe El Jacod. I actually believe that she sued her boss in Colorado. It's about controlling the narrative with him. Seems like a narcissist, and maybe, well, I'm not gonna make any. I'm not a therapist. Run for public. 52 people in here, only 6 likes. Smash. Second most sus issue for me is that they found her so quickly and then he moved her. Well, so for me, like, I can understand that point. Imagine if you find your baby in a state of distress. Like, I would immediately go to my baby. That I can't fault him for that. I understand the impulse to do so, specifically being his baby. Supposedly these are two very intelligent people. The thing, I don't fault him for that. I fault the police for that. A deeper dive into this needs to happen. The Crime Junkie podcast is just pushing the intruder theory and not listening to anything else. I just think if you have John Ramsey sitting in front of you and you have him saying, I'll answer anything, then let's get into the nitty gritty. Let's keep going and know the facts of the case, right? So he's sitting here saying, well, our goal was to get JonBenét to Atlanta because that's where we wanted to get her buried. And, that's what we wanted to do. But then you would have said, okay, but I thought your original plan was to go to Michigan. It is so frustrating. Lockheed, he says, military industrial complex. JonBenét photo with Ghislaine Maxwell. You know what? I've seen that photo. I don't know if is it a real photo? Because, I don't trust the internet. And I'm on it. I need a little like ting.
Home was Atlanta.
Also, I'm looking into getting a soundboard so I can make this stream super fun.
Is home, do you mean like you had a support system?
Yeah, and we lived there for 30 years.
When you made that, would you make the call? Because did you or you didn't make a call to
I
start
don't
working?
remember how that evolved. No, I didn't, actually.
So, Melinda, I completely agree with you. I do think that the police in this case had blinders on, and I think I understand. The reason that I get so frustrated with the police department, I really want you guys, I did a deep dive on this, but if you guys want to watch the Netflix documentary, it's called American Nightmare, and it's about Denise Huskins. And it's the police had one thing in their mind and one thing in their mind only, and they were so incredibly wrong. And that case was so disgusting. Oh my God, Lucia! Oh, Lucia, thank you. Can I show this on I don't know how to show these things on my screen. How do I get it to show up on my screen? God, I hate that I can't do this. Somebody tell me how. Thank you, Lucia, for the super chat. Like, follow, subscribe, join. We appreciate you. Oh, I have alerts. Wait, I have alerts that I could turn on. But now I forgot my point. Lucia. Lucia. You made me lose my point. Super chat, yes. I hope one day we really know what happened. Why not do CPR instead of worrying about getting the rope off her wrist? I think in that moment you just don't know, you know? You just don't know. Oh, anyways, talking about the Denise Huskins case. So I can I get these, Mr. Pike, is there a way to get to these to show on my screen? I got to find out how to do that. Oh my god. John gifted a membership. Melly, you are a member. Yay! Yay, Melly. So exciting. Thank you, John. Wasn't the black mag flashlight tested as a murder weapon? Why hasn't anyone? Yeah, exactly, Bobby. That's a good point. Nobody. Well, but here's the other thing, right? We can't prove that Burke did it with malicious intent. I have to say, my husband has been hit in the face with a golf club, so I watched that and it was bonkers with Linda Arndt. Yeah, that interview was a little different. I love it here. I'm so excited. I got a membership. Yes. Thank you. So welcome to the members, Melly. We appreciate John. Thank you, guys. The flashlight and the batteries had no fingerprints. Exactly. And also, too, it's interesting to me that the flashlight and the batteries inside the flashlight have absolutely zero fingerprints, yet the bowl on the table with Burke's pineapple and milk had all of the fingerprints on it. So very interesting.
I'd asked.
Oh, one more point. Denise Huskins. If you guys want, you can go to the deep dive in my video. If you don't want, you can go to Netflix. It's a 3-part series. It is so good, but it is so about how the police got hyperfixated on them and they were so incredibly wrong and they were so just fumbled it so bad. And I just try to take in all things to account. The detective work on this case is horrid. I mean, I would have been yelling at folks telling them to get out of the crime scene, even as her parent. Right, exactly. Everyone from that house should have been removed. And that's the thing, right? They think that they're working with a kidnapping situation, but we've already messed up the kidnapping situation, right? They said that if anybody came to the house or if anybody was contacted, JonBenét was dead. That's already been done. Oh my, Chab. Oh my God. Thank you, Chab. You guys, can we get some hype for Chab, please? And for Lucia and for John. Oh my God. All right, you guys, I'm going to get a soundboard because whenever somebody does something, I want to go, fa, 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 fa. You guys are so great. Oh my God. You are turning into John Ramsey with all these donations. Stop it. Don't say that, Pats.
One of the detectives.
By the way, I just want to let you know, I first got on YouTube in 2013, and I used to do makeup, and I used to just, do my little videos with 0 viewers. And I just want to tell you that one of my first friends 12 years ago, when I first got on this platform, was Chab. She is one of the kindest, funniest. I don't know if you still create videos, but you honestly are one of the sweetest people that I have ever met. And I feel so lucky to still be talking to you on this platform to this day. So everybody welcome Chab to the chat. Have you given an opinion on what you think happened? Right. And that's the thing, right, Jeffrey? Like, I want her to talk about, like, I don't know.
There's only one detective there that morning. Everybody else was on vacation. It was day after Christmas. But there were lots of detectives and police there. And
Melly, thank you.
I can't remember what I said, but like, I want to go home. And he said, yeah, that's fine, go. And Lockheed sent one of their airplanes out, which is wonderful. And flew us back to Atlanta.
So
And took
He's
one
got
of
a
Burke's
lot of love
friends
for
with him
Lockheed.
at the last minute.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What friend came with him?
I can't remember his name, but it's one of his buddies. And the mom, they were at the airport seeing us off. And
He is
forget how
very
it came
picky
up,
and
but
choosy about what he remembers and what
whatever
he
his name
doesn't.
was, Taylor, could he come with us? And we're like, I'm sure he could, but I don't know that his mother would
Well,
like
yeah,
that.
what would like?
And his mother said,
Yes,
yes,
it was,
that's
John.
great, wonderful.
Oh wow.
So Burke and Patsy and I and this little friend are on this Lockheed plane that flew us back to Atlanta. And that's as far as our planning had gotten. There was no planning. You're in shock.
They're from
when
Atlanta.
we left the house that morning after we found JonBenét,
Thank you,
we
Chad.
never went back in that home. We were staying with friends. Friends took us in, and a lot of our friends were there to
We watched this
support us.
yesterday. Let's get to
You know,
this.
there's no killer out there because she'd been told by the police that us parents, we know it's the parents, we just got to prove it. And
El Jacob.
it was weird. It
Thank
was
you.
weird. But that,
Yeah.
we shouldn't have been doing an interview like that.
What did your lawyers say when they like? Because I mean, did they just see you on TV one day? Because I think that's the thing. People would be like, I don't understand. Like, John's a smart guy.
That's
He's
true,
He's
John.
consulting his lawyers for everything. How does his lawyers not know he's going on CNN?
At that time, we'd been introduced to our lawyers, but we then immediately flew back to Atlanta for JonBenét.
So, Pat's, the only thing that I have to argue against that, and just playing devil's advocate, is my grandmother, and I'll bring this up a lot because she's really the only like person that I have to reference that I know personally that has lost children. And there are moments that you black out, like you just forget about. So maybe that's it. Playing devil's advocate.
We had not met with our lawyers.
Oh, okay.
It was a horrible mistake for several reasons. One, we were in no shape to do an interview. There's no point in doing an interview other than to
Hi,
satisfy
Bunny.
our friends who are pressuring us to.
Oh, we saw this yesterday.
That was horribly wrong, and you need to. But they couldn't respond.
Because there seems like there was this huge rift that like I've not seen in such a stark way. I've seen it happen before, but
Yeah.
between the DA's office
Yeah.
and the police.
Okay, here we go.
And it's in you know, you had lawyers who I think knew, you know, they knew the DA, kind of grew up with them, worked with them. Like, so I think that you guys obviously had an amicable relationship. They're the one you eventually go and talk to.
Right. I don't know. What I was told, the police were like, "Oh, we know who did it. Go arrest him and prosecute him." And the DA says, "Well, show me the evidence." Well, we don't have that much evidence. We just know they did it. And so the DA wouldn't charge him. And the police took that as an offense. And apparently that happened a lot. That happened in our case.
I feel like there was like this circle where it was a lot of that, where I kept hearing like the DA's like, get the evidence. The police would say, and I don't know what's true, but the police would say, we're trying to get the evidence, but you're stalling us.
Right. No,
Like-
that's kind of what.
Do you feel like that? Like, and I don't know what advice you were getting or what was happening, but I do see moments where there are certain things where I think like phone records, like the police say they don't have phone records until like a year later.
Oh no, we gave them everything they asked for when they asked for it.
Yes, but no, because also remember, it wasn't until a year later that the police got their clothes from that night. And it wasn't even a full set of clothes for everybody. So yes and no. Yes, they were initially helpful up front. They gave them DNA. They gave them handwriting samples. They gave them everything that they wanted. But as the police started to press further, they started to shut down. And so, I mean, both sides, yes, both sides are true. But that's one thing that I would ask. Why didn't you give the police your clothes from that night? And why didn't you give them a full set of clothes for everybody? Period.
Early on, we gave them phone records, we gave them credit card records, full access to our bank accounts, everything they asked for. The only thing they asked for a year later, which they should have asked for
Yeah.
in the beginning, was our clothing that we were wearing that morning.
Yes, they should
Because they
have.
found unidentified fibers, pubic hairs that were not identified. A year later, somebody said, "Oh, you should have asked for their clothing." Well, they finally did, and we had to show us a picture. I don't even remember what we were wearing. But we gave them everything they asked for.
They did. That is true.
Handwriting
That is
samples.
true.
We had to write that horrible note right-handed and left-handed.
Yep.
So they had samples of our handwriting, which didn't match. So they wanted to arrest us
Yes, I believe
on
actually,
probable cause.
I believe that I read in an article that Patsy was interviewed for like 6 hours by herself. They were questioned separately, yes.
They probably did this, so let's arrest them and beat a confession out of them. In fact, we were told by the DA two things later, years later. The whole police case was based on they didn't think we acted right that morning. And the strategy to solve the case was to bring intense pressure on
good
Patsy
lawyer.
and I so the innocent one would confess.
Right.
What did they mean by you didn't act right? So like, what were the
Well,
things that were bothering
that's
them?
the interesting thing. I read that there was one detective there, this woman, who, I don't know if she'd ever investigated a murder or not, probably.
Socially, I did not know that.
Because she came when it was still a kidnapping, right?
Yeah. They went to the sheriff's office, got a book
That's
on
true,
how to
Melinda.
deal with kidnapping. They didn't know. And I read her report much later, and it was just nuts. But the things that she observed,
I have to disagree here. I actually found when I went through Linda Arndt's report and I was reading it out loud with my mother-in-law, she was sitting here with me and we were going over it together. And I was just saying to her, as I would read it, what Linda Arndt reported. And I will find the report and I'll put it in the Discord. I'll put it up on the community tab as well. Somebody remind me of that. Hold on. I'll write it down. Linda Arndt. Actually, I could probably find it right now. Linda Arndt report. If you guys go through the report, everything that she writes, and you read it from the perspective of a parent, it really does. Everything looks completely reasonable. Everything, Patsy looks distressed and distraught, and John, she's like, he's quiet and going through his mail, and some people I shut down through tragedy. Let me tell you something. We talked about this before. I get a very visceral reaction. There have been two things that have happened with both of my kids. I do not cry. I go straight business. Like when there is something with my children, I go empty. And I was talking about it with my therapist, but I go straight. There's nothing. I feel nothing. I go numb and I get to the point. And then a day later or 3 days later, or when I was in the hospital with my daughter, we brought her in on Monday. By Thursday, when I had finally allowed myself to cry and I started vomiting. Like some people don't act the way that you expect them to act right away because it's just a part of their processing. But I will tell you that in her report, everything that she says is completely reasonable. Like I read through all 17 pages and I was like, there's nothing out of the ordinary that's sticking out to me.
would say, yeah, that's not what you'd expect because of the way she wrote it. For example, she said, I observed him going casually through the mail, waiting for this phone call from the kidnapper. I was looking for another communication for the kidnapper. We had a pile of mail that had come through the front door slot, laying on the floor. I was going through it to see if there's anything else from the kidnapper. She should have been doing that. But she interpreted it as casually going through the mail while waiting for a call to come in. She also said 10 o'clock came and went. John didn't go nuts because the call didn't.
Liam, I don't know if I completely agree, right? Trying to discredit Linda Arndt. I don't know if it's discredit her or they just see the scene, they see it completely differently.
We didn't get a call. The note said, I will call you at 10 o'clock tomorrow. I didn't know if tomorrow was tomorrow or the day we were in. So when 10 o'clock came and went, I thought, oh my God, I got to wait another 24 hours
I agree with
for
you,
this
Cuff.
call to come. So it wasn't a big surprise that
Oh, I don't know. Kimberly, I see it right now. Why are your messages not coming up? I see it. The counting the 18 bullets, the knowing the killer was in the house, there was some of it that was giving me a little Jodie Foster.
he didn't call because it said tomorrow in the note. What was the other thing? It was just nuts. Oh, when he found JonBenét, he didn't cry. There was no tears. People react differently to
Yes.
trauma, but when I
Also,
lost
he's
my daughter
also
Beth
lost
in
a
car
daughter.
accident,
Yep.
JonBenét's older sister, I was mad. I didn't cry. I was mad. Why did this happen? I was mad at God. With Beth, and then with JonBenét, it was, and what I guess they didn't understand was when
Yes, we could go through that.
they're
I'll
making
write
these
that down.
observations of our
Analyze ransom
behavior.
note.
When I lost Beth, I got a call. It was over. I couldn't do anything about it. I couldn't get her to the best medical treatment. I couldn't go by her side and comfort her. It was over. It was done. She was gone. With JonBenét,
Oop,
it wasn't
sorry.
over. I could get her back, and I
I'm
really
going to
thought I
put
would.
Linda Arndt's
But
report
I
in
had
the
to keep my
community
wits
tab.
about me, and I had to keep my head together and do whatever I could possibly do, not knowing
dear God.
what to do. But
Which is actually how I think I would respond to a traumatic situation, is I'm very like jump in and act.
yeah,
The thing that I think other like people don't understand, that this is the one that was hard for me, is like it's said
Pats,
over and
go
over by
ahead.
Linda Arndt that you and Patsy are just like completely separated. What was your
well,
interpretation
Patsy
of that?
was literally sitting on the floor with a
Okay, I have to tell you, let me tell you about this too. That's another thing that she points out, is the fact that John wasn't by Patsy. Okay, I grew up in an environment where I had somebody, when crisis would happen, they completely over the top. Tears, screaming, crying, just all this blubbering drama. And I am not that person, and I was just like, shut the up. And I grew up in a house that was crisis after crisis after crisis after crisis. So I learned how to not do that. But when people get, and I understand that people deal with it differently, but when people in crises cannot pull themselves together, it makes my blood boil. It makes me so upset, because I'm like, shut the fuck up. Like, and I don't mean to sound like that, because it is very mean, because not everybody reacts like me. But if I had somebody in this crisis like Patsy, who was completely falling apart, I would have to separate myself from them, because I just get away from me. The ransom note and the time of the call, the note saying, don't contact the police, we'll call you tomorrow. It was the Ramseys trying to buy time. Oh, buy time. Okay.
big bowl.
I don't know if I read tomorrow. That's interesting. I don't remember reading that, but we will have to analyze that.
Bowl in front of her, ready to throw up. Quite honestly, she was devastated.
Of course.
So she was over there. That's fine. That's okay. I was focused on trying to get JonBenét back. How do I get the money together? He wanted $118,000 in an attaché case. How do I get the cash together?
What's
working on
an
that.
attaché case? Can someone explain that to me?
It's what I got to get my daughter back. That was my focus. Patsy's okay.
She's got friends around her.
She had friends around her. I got to get my daughter back.
That was the other thing. Linda says in her interpretation of things that you disappear.
If you guys want to read Linda Arndt's police report, it is in the community tab on my channel. So the next OJ video will probably be out in a couple of weeks. I'm working on Brian Koberger right now, but because I keep doing lives, I keep getting set back. But this is more fun. I like this.
For an hour.
That's not true.
Fancy name for a briefcase.
No. I was looking out the window occasionally to see if I could see anything. But no, I didn't disappear for an hour. Linda Arndt was nuts. She, on national television, said, well, I knew he was guilty because I saw it in his eyes. I thought, well, that's quite a talent. But she was way in over her head and not, I don't think she's playing with a full deck.
Aside from that first day, did you ever have,
I understand disagreeing with her and being mad at her, especially. Well, I don't know. I guess if somebody was accusing me of murder and I didn't actually do it, I would probably call them every name in the book. So if we're going with the fact that we think John is innocent, right? I get it.
like, do other interviews with her or have much interaction with her?
None.
Did her and Patsy end up having a relationship of some kind?
Well, she was our savior. I mean, she came to help us. You call the police, you expect them to come to help. We trusted her initially before we'd seen this report, all these crazy observations. And so she was kind of our policeman personified. We didn't know any of these other people that had come involved from the police department, but Linda was there that morning when we had this horrible tragedy in our lives, so it's kind of a bonding in a way.
So did they, like, even after that, her and Patsy had conversations afterwards? 'Cause
They had
I
a few.
Okay, yeah, I've heard that, but I didn't know.
Yeah.
It seemed like you guys had such a bad experience with her that I was surprised.
Well, at the
that
time, we didn't know it was a bad experience.
Mm.
You call the
Nancy
police, you think they know
Brophy.
what they're
I'll
doing.
write that down.
And that's you trust them totally to do the right thing. And
Did Patsy ever tell you what they talked about? Because I think that's like a big mystery to people. Is like why she
I
seems
think,
so
well, I
against-
think, I can't remember, it's been so long ago, but Patsy wanted to know who killed her daughter.
Yeah.
What are you doing? What's going on? That was the kind of the level of conversation, I'm pretty sure.
Gary Oliva. Did you want to talk about him?
Oh, yeah, he was the lead
interesting,
that the DA
curious.
gave us.
Or conscious. Sorry, I
Said
can't
the
read.
police won't follow up on this properly, but it's a significant lead.
And it was back in the day. I remember reading
Yeah,
his
it was
name
early on.
in like the interviews you guys did back in like 98 when they were like, do you recognize this name? Do you recognize this name?
Yeah,
And Gary Oliva was on there.
yeah. And
Cuckoo.
say the circumstantially is very compelling. I know our guys looked at it, our investigators, and kind of confirmed the circumstantial information that was given to us and turned it over to the police. My memory is that they interviewed him, but didn't, kind of blew it off. I don't know if they did DNA testing, handwriting samples.
I've seen some handwriting more recently. I don't know if they just recently got collected, they're bringing it up again, but I've seen some handwriting samples that look promising. But I also think that handwriting 30 years later now, people look at it sometimes the way they do with like bite mark, which is like kind of junk science. So I don't
Well,
even
yeah,
know.
it's not admissible in court.
Yeah, and so I don't even know if they would, the way that they felt so strongly about Patsy in 1996. I don't know that anyone would feel that way now if we.
Well, again,
if it were a new
it was
case.
wrong to feel that way back then. Because she was 4.5 out of 5, which is pretty much no way, but
I think it was because it was her notepad pen from the,
No.
to your point, it's like.
I don't want to critique. I've never interviewed somebody, right? And I've never been sitting across from John Ramsey, and I can't imagine how nerve-wracking this is. But I just wish she would say, because he's like, oh, there's no way. Well, we have experts on both sides. So, and if you've looked at any major trial, you will see that there are experts that contradict both sides. You have somebody who said that, yes, they can prove without a doubt, or, they have, I believe somebody found 200 points on why the ransom note looked exactly like Patsy Ramsey's handwriting. And then you will find people who say that there's not. But when interviewing, this is why I'll never be able to interview somebody, because I think I would just come off as too combative, and that's fine. I don't need to interview anybody. But if he were to say it's 4.5, there's no way that she ever wrote the note, I would like to say, okay, well, listen, I have this other person who found, 200 points saying that she did. And that's a handwriting expert. What is your answer to that? You have to be able to play both sides. And the thing is if you're trying to get a true interview and you're trying to get down to the nitty gritty of it, like, somebody was like, you should interview John. John would hate me. We're not here to be friends. I'm here to get answers. So if you're here to tell me that, like, oh, this, and this, it's just, no, I have contradicting points. Let's talk about those. What do you have to think? What do you have to say about that? Even the police said her handwriting wasn't an exact match. Without a doubt, the handwriting was 100% Patsy's. Let's see. I don't know. The handwriting was pretty distinct in my opinion. Let's see. Def wrote it 100%. Ransom noticed smoking gun. It's also not typical for a perpetrator to cover up a body after a killing. She was clothed, redressed. She was also covered up with a blanket, which would suggest guilt or feeling bad. My only problem with Burke as a suspect is the assault. He was 9 at the time. The wounds are inconsistent with a 9-year-old. True. However, and I don't think that was Burke either. But you can't rule out the fact that if something was happening to Burke, that he would have access to that kind of knowledge, he can't rule out, because there is peer-to-peer assault. That's the only thing that's why this case is so messy, right? And that's why you can make anything fit in this case. It means the abuse was fresh, must have been postmortem. Yet the Emmy found evidence that it was perimortem. I'm confused. They also said, though, that the assault was not like a, how do I explain it? Like, yes, it was assault. However, it was with an object. It wasn't like with personal stuff. There's such a limit on what I can say on YouTube.
Like
Well,
they had-
again, yeah, but so, it was in the house, and the person was in the house before we were, and none of that. It was her paintbrush. That was okay,
Oh my
sorry,
God,
we didn't
streets?
have the paintbrush locked up.
Yeah, it seems
Streets be out here in the streets fighting 8-year-olds. Nearly 10 to be exact. Right, Burke was. Right. The other thing that brings me to that is one of the cases that horrifies me the most, and I don't know if I would ever cover it because it is so scary, is I believe Paris Bennett is his name. He was 13 at the time and brutally murdered his sister to punish his mother. So, whenever I see stories about kids attacking other kids, I'm like, ugh. There was a case in Illinois, I believe, where a 6-year-old killed his 2-year-old sibling with a knife. So, to say that children aren't capable.
Seems like there were these like cultural shifts. I think there was like that distinct moment in 2016 when everyone started looking at Burke, and that's become like the big story now.
That's absolutely insane. Burke was a 60-pound, 9-year-old little boy. This was a sexual assault, a violent assault. It's just, even the police immediately said no. He was interviewed by a child psychologist, which I guess is normal, for 2 days early on, and they said no, absolutely no way. He wasn't aware of anything that happened, and certainly wasn't the killer. And so that's just absurd foolishness.
What was your thinking that morning?
Well, that's the thing, though, right? So now you have to talk about two things, right? It's absurd foolishness to think that Burke did this with malicious intent, right? That's one of the theories, is that either it was over the bowl of pineapple or it was over the fact that Burke was jealous of his sister. That would be assuming that Burke did this maliciously. But then there's another theory that it was an accident. And we do know that there was an accident in the house where Burke had accidentally hit her with a golf club and they had to take her to the hospital. And allegedly they had talked about seeing a plastic surgeon. So, James Bulger, is that little, Liam, is that the redheaded kid? Because that case freaks me out too. Why am I doing true crime? All of these freak me out.
You're getting him out of the home because I know you guys go to check on him. You think he's still sleeping. He says when he does his Dr. Phil that he's awake, but he's, clearly there's something going on. He's like, I'm not messing with it. I just am like waiting till they come and get me. Mm-hmm. Why did you guys want him to not be in that environment?
Well,
why do you think? Why do you think? I have to tell you, if I'm trying to deal with a crisis and one of my children is missing, yes, I need somebody to take my other child out of this house for 2 reasons. Number one, I as a mother need to concentrate. I need to be all here, and I cannot be all here if I have one of my children around, because now I'm focused on them and how they're doing. Second of all, you have all of this stuff going on around, and a lot of people would want Burke to be out of the house, because if you assume that you're going to get JonBenét back, you don't want to be like, hey, your sister's been kidnapped. Just joking. I don't think them getting Burke out of the house, to me, immediately, I don't think that's suspect at all.
The police were there. It was craziness. He was a little boy. We wanted him safe and protected, and he took some of his Christmas presents with him and went to stay with a friend in his house. It was a way to get him out of this nightmare.
That's true, Cuff.
Into a safe place.
Did you guys feel like he was safe? I think that was it hard? Because I think it would be hard for me to I'm missing one child. Like, I don't know if you could get me to let go of the other one.
Yeah, well, no, we trusted our friends. They were good friends. Their son was Burke's age. They were buddies.
He
They'd
went to
been
Fleet White's
friends
house
for a long time. It was a safe place for him to go.
Did they have, because Fleet took him away, but then Fleet comes back, right? Were his in-laws or something at the house? So there was like someone there with the kids? 30 years ago.
Yeah, I don't know. It was chaos that morning, and I really thought I could get JonBenét back. I really did.
I don't know about the Christmas presents, but I do know that there are reports about Burke having a fecal smearing issue.
Dealt with that, or John Douglas, who's probably the premier crime profiler, started that whole FBI program, crime profiling. We spent some time with him over a period of time.
Yes and no, though, Stephen, because they did end up interviewing him, and he saw a psychologist right away, a child psychologist. Yeah, Kimberly, that's a good point. I just think for me, I need to focus on the task at hand. And I would allow I don't know. I would think that I would allow my kids to go with somebody that I trusted with my whole being, just please take care of this right now so I can take care of whatever this is. Case closed.
And his profile of this was that this was a fairly young person, 20s to 30s, fascinated with the movies because there's some movie quotes in the ransom note. And was either very angry at you personally, John, or very jealous of you, John. This wasn't about JonBenét. That's John's assessment.
I do have to tell you, so Conscious Machine said that they were hiding Burke and his friend. I do have to tell you that I read an article, but I wasn't able to verify the facts. But there is an article stating that in an interview, both Burke Ramsey and Fleet Jr. said that they wore high-tech boots, that they had high-tech boots, and there were high-tech prints around JonBenét's body. And Liam, I do agree with you. I feel if Burke did do it, he would have cracked under the investigators. You're asking a 9-year-old to keep that kind of secret, especially for this long. That's such a long time. Yeah, I would definitely want to have my other kids leave the house with someone I trust. Why would he or she need to see all this? I agree. The lawyer they lawyered up and was questioned by the police at a later time. So they actually did an initial interview, and then they were questioned much later, months later.
And do you still believe that?
I think that's part of it. I really do. But whoever did this is a monster.
Do you believe that you're the why?
I accept John Douglas's theory as credible. I really do.
Yeah.
2 weeks before her murder, our company had achieved $1 billion in sales for the year.
Right.
And for us, that was a big deal. And I wasn't even paying attention. And our financial guy said, hey, we're going to hit $1 billion. It's like, holy mackerel, we need to have a party for our employees and make a big deal of it. And our marketing lady said, let's let the newspaper know. And I had this gut feeling. Another lesson, pay attention to your gut feelings. Had this gut feeling, it's a bad idea. But I let him do it. And
Why does, like, if it was about the money and like your greed and going back to a lot of things the note said, what do you think?
Nightmare in 3D. I recently ordered JonBenét Death of a Princess book from eBay. I hope it reads like a case file rather than the National Enquirer. Who wrote that book?
The way that the sexual component to this and the way that they staged it, like why?
Lucia, maybe we'll have to watch his interview because I don't know what he said exactly.
Why that piece of it?
I don't
If it goes back to being about you and about money, like that's
I know
what
it doesn't
add
make
up.
sense. I agree. No, well, whoever did this is crazy, demented human being.
Yeah.
I know it doesn't make a lot of it, I don't know.
I know you guys have been extremely clear that there was no sexual abuse on your part, any family member's part.
Our doctors can testify to that.
Well, that was my question. So I know that you guys have been clear. Do you think that she wasn't abused by anyone ever, even if there's
We don't know that for a
Okay.
fact. No, we don't. I mean, we never suspected that, but we don't know that.
Yeah, I mean, what most people don't, right? Like
No.
but it's 1 in 5 girls are sexually assaulted.
Yeah. We don't know.
I guess the theory, El Jacad, also if Burke did it and it was an accident, why would the parents cover it up at all? Yeah. So that's the thing. My thing is if Burke did it and it was an accident, I always come back to the assault. If you're going to cover it up because it was an accident, like, okay, you can take me there, but you can't take me to the extent of an assault. I can't imagine that parents who would cover it up because it was an accident would take it to that extreme. Someone inside the house, someone close to them, made friends, or do you lean towards with shoes? Is it okay to ask, do you lean towards someone inside? You know what, Kimberly, every time I watch this, I go back and forth. I honestly can't give you an answer. I cannot. Streets of Bakerfield says, I think the maid could have done it. So she did have a bit of a bedwetting issue. That's what I was getting at before. Right. Maybe they all panicked, and that's all I can think. Yeah, that's true. I just don't, even in a panic, right? You could be like, oh my God, she fell down the stairs. It had nothing to do with any of us. Why take it to that extra extreme? There was like so many levels of just heinous stuff that happened to this poor little girl.
For sure.
Do you know, did they ever look into knowing John Douglas's profile? I know he said 20 to 30, but his profile of this being a young, really unsophisticated person, did they take a really hard look at like the other kids in the neighborhood?
No, they never did any neighborhood survey. They never went door to door, which is a huge mistake.
What's
Agree.
so wild to me is like
Agree.
they like the first officer, French, I think was his name, he goes to the room that JonBenét's found.
Which
He just doesn't
maid?
open the door. It's latched, so he's like, no, thank you.
Right.
How does Fleet White open the door and not see it?
I don't know. If that's true, that's a huge red flag. She was right there. I mean,
Because you like the second you open the door, you see the
in a
white blanket.
microsecond.
Doesn't add up.
No, it doesn't.
Wait. What did she
She
ask
was-
him?
If that's true,
How does Fleet White open the door and not see it?
I don't know.
Okay, so here's what I want to talk about. She says, how does Fleet White open the door and not see anything? So, in Linda Arndt's report, when you go to read it, she states that she interviewed somebody, and the name is redacted, but I believe it's Fleet White, had said that they went downstairs to the wine cellar, unlatched the door, opened the door, saw nothing. They couldn't find the light switch, closed the door back up, and did the latch, right? Okay, first of all, there's that. How was Fleet White, or whoever this is that's redacted in the thing, able to get into that room? But the police had said that the door was either locked or blocked and they weren't able to access it, number one. Number two, Fleet White comes out in a later statement and says that John, before he even flipped on the lights, was like, oh my God, there's JonBenét, alluding to the fact that he already knew that she was in there. And I will tell you that there are multiple reports accusing of Fleet White just being completely irrational that day. Even in a panic, what type of parent could defile their child like that? That's insane. I agree. Yeah. Also, a garrote is not a commonly, I've never heard of a garrote until this case. So yeah, I will tell you that. What's the time from the report says she died to when the police showed up? So she died. So the autopsy, it depends on which story you take, because if John never addresses the pineapple, right? If we never address the pineapple, she died somewhere between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. But if you address the pineapple, they think that she died somewhere at 1 a.m. She wasn't found until 1 p.m. the next day, already in rigor mortis, already with the smell of decay on her. Technically, they had hours to plan and stage the scene. True. Death of a Little Princess by Carlton Smith. I hope I don't find out he wrote for the Inquirer. Thank you, Nightmare. Yeah, I'd really like to know about that. Do we think the DNA sample they still have is reliable and good since the scene was so tampered with? You know what, Kristen? I really don't know. I think everybody's so focused on the DNA in this case. And I don't even know. You know what? There's a great podcast. I'll also put this in the community tab. There is a wonderful podcast on the Mile Higher podcast. It's a husband and wife that do it, and they have an ex-DA, and he does like DNA stuff now, and he talks a lot about it. I'll put it in there right now. I can't explain it to you, but he talks about like why they have to be careful about doing the DNA right now, if it's, because it's a smaller, it's complicated. Just watch that. It's a fantastic watch. How could they not feel cold air from the broken window? A garrote was also means of, where John was stationed. Interesting. The autopsy doesn't directly say pineapple. I read an autopsy. I can find it. And thank you, Lucia. I can find it and see if I can, because the one that I read, this is why I need to save where I find all my stuff, because the one that I read said pineapple.
If that's true, that's a huge red flag. She was right there. I mean,
Because you, like the second you open the door, you see the
in a
white blanket.
microsecond.
Doesn't add up.
No, it doesn't. And that's, again, you don't know if that's fiction or fact. There's so much fiction that was put out by the
Have
police.
so I know you guys don't have much of a relationship now, but like, are those some of the questions, like the hard questions that like, I mean, again, I think this is my friend that I'm going to be like in their face. Tell me how this makes sense.
What I think happened, first of all, I think the police took Fleet away from the home we were in that morning or the day after. And he came back after a couple hours and was different. I think the police were leveraging Fleet to use him. We have evidence that the family killed JonBenét and you need to help us here. I don't know, but they said he was different when he came back from meeting with the police for 2 hours.
Because you guys have like a huge falling out, right? Like,
Yep.
Well, it was just because it was bizarre. I mean, he came back to Atlanta to attend the funeral. And we made arrangements for our Boulder friends to stay with Atlanta friends in their homes. And our friends that we had that person stay with they didn't call us, but they called somebody that was helping us and say, we want him out of our house. He's bizarre, something screwy. And so we put him with my brother.
mm-hmm.
My brother called me a day or so later and said, do you have a gun in the house? And I said, no. Well, Fleet is on his way to your house. We were with Patsy's parents. Something's wrong. And
What was he saying? Like, I mean, for your brother to say,
apparently
do you have a gun? Like, that's scary.
My brother's as passive a person as you ever want to meet.
So what does he say when he gets to you? Because I know in Patsy's deposition, she's like, I don't know, I was in the basement. Like, I'm not part of that conversation. Yeah. And it seems like she never asked you. But like, what is that conversation?
I don't remember. I honestly don't remember.
And then he comes one more time when you're back in Colorado, like comes at you kind of again, like interrupts the meeting with you.
We were with our priest or minister, and he barged in. And I think it was just a hugely, at best, it was a hugely upsetting thing for Fleet to be in the periphery of all this.
At worst?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'd been with him a lot, and I have no doubt that the police used him. Probably said, well, John thinks you killed his daughter and you got to work with us here. Don't know that for a fact, but I wouldn't be surprised. I had, Fleet and I used to sail. Fleet was a really expert sailor, and I was not.
There are a lot of. Oh, hold on a second, because Kristen, I'm about to answer your question, but also that's a very interesting point. What if Fleet's son and Burke, by accident, seems like John has suspicions of Fleet? There's a lot of people who have suspicions of Fleet, but also, very interesting here, Fleet was an expert sailor. What do sailors know how to do? Tie knots.
And I bought the
Were
sailboat.
you in the Navy?
Yeah, that doesn't matter.
Okay.
It's irrelevant.
Sure.
I think it was a sail. You know,
That's irrelevant? You were in the Navy, and that's irrelevant?
I don't know, this is a couple years later, I said
I really like that she asked that, though. Weren't you in the Navy? Like, Fleet's an expert sailor. Weren't you in the Navy? Yeah. Okay.
it back to him with the note and said, look, I don't know what the police told you. I'm sure they've probably told you things that weren't true, but I absolutely don't think you were involved in our daughter's murder. And I never heard back from him, but just, I knew him, I knew him well, I knew his kids.
How do you not like go like shake it out? Like this is the part that as I'm like I like so hard to understand, and I understand why people spiral. And then his wife, I heard, was telling Patsy like I need a couple minutes, I might know something. But I'm just like, God, is there something in there?
Agree.
How do you feel like you have to like what is it that
Yeah, I don't like the fact that he just completely like dismissed that he was in the Navy. You're also going to learn, don't you? I've not actually, we have some people who are in the services in the chat. If you would be interested, I don't want to out you, but if you would be interested in this, but don't you learn? And I don't know about the Navy, but when you sign up for the Navy, like, do you learn hand-to-hand combat? Do you learn knot tying? Do you learn all these things? Because he was in that for 11 years. And I can't tie a knot to save my life. Okay, thank you, Streets. You just answered that. It's irrelevant, and then you laugh. Yeah, I don't...
that like makes you not be...
But also, there were some people I'm being serious. I'm former Army. Yeah, I don't know how knot tying is in modern... I don't know. But also, there was somebody talking about... I think it was Patsy talked about how Burke was like a little sailor too. Like he would sail. He was also in the Cub Scouts where you would learn to tie knots or do those things. I grew up being an avid fisherman with my grandfather, and I know how to tie some different knots. If you're doing anything on the water, I would suppose, you learn it in boot camp and never use it again, depending on your rate. Interesting. Okay.
Not be the Fleet who's like
he
holding
is very,
on to people's collars.
You know what, Anna? It's interesting. He is very charismatic. I have to try to sit back like from my feels, because as I know a lot about this case, and it's easy for me to sit here behind my computer and judge this interview, but I do have to say he does come off very charismatic and very likable.
Yeah. I've told people, look.
Yeah.
If
Clearly,
you were a male
steer the conversation.
living in Boulder on the 26th or 25th of December 1996, you're a suspect in my book. I can't rule you out. I don't know. I'm so suspicious.
Why did he change that from the 26th to the 25th? When I wake up, John owned 3 boats and even designed his boat to be built and win sailing competitions that were over 300 miles. Is that factual? Can you find me a link that confirms that? Because I would love to look into that. Notice how he changes it though from the 26th, because her time of death is the 26th, and he says on the 25th.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'd been with him a lot. Clete and I used to sail. I don't know, this is a couple of years ago. I don't think you were involved in
How do you not like go like people saying,
25th
Where are we?
of December, a
There we
male
go.
living in Boulder on the 26th or 25th of December 1996, you're suspect in my book. I can't rule you out. I don't know. I'm so suspicious and
Underscore, that's a great point. Being in the military for the past 15 years, I believe it would depend a lot on your job. As an IT guy isn't going to be tying knots. Someone else might be real handy at it. That's a great point. Not only was John in the Navy, but he was a sailor. He won some sailboat races or whatever they are called. He was also an Eagle Scout, as was his eldest son. Interesting. 25 to 26, right? It's interesting. The Delphi, I got to look at that too. I know nothing about that case. I'll write that one down.
frightened and bewildered. You're a suspect in my book. I don't trust you.
what was the deal with the 23rd 911 call?
Yes,
And my
thank you for your
favorite character,
service, all
Fleet
of you.
White.
Yeah, there's weird stuff like that. What was the deal?
What was the
Stuff like
question?
that.
Character, Fleet White. What was the deal with the 23rd 911 call? And my favorite
Yes.
character, Fleet White.
My favorite character.
Yeah, there's weird stuff like that. What was the deal?
I can tell you what it
Somehow
was.
he dialed 911.
Yes. So he was at the party. So the Ramseys had a party at their house on the 23rd or the 24th where they had caterers and the kids made gingerbread houses, and somebody accidentally called 911. Fleet was allegedly calling Aspen, Colorado for to get his mother in the hospital some meds. But I believe, let me Google it. Hold on, area code, Aspen, Colorado is actually 970. Yep, 970, but somehow he got 911. So very defensive pose. Watch True Crime Rocket Science. He has a really great episode about John. Oh, interesting. Okay, I will do that. What is it called? True Crime Rocket Science. Okay. True Crime Rocket. You got me writing down all sorts of stuff today. You guys are great. Thank you guys for being here. The fact that I show up and you guys show up is so great. Very bad things can happen on Christmas. It's interesting that they did put Christmas Day on her tombstone, but somebody else made a good point in the comment that you might want to remember the last day that you were with her, right? Like the last happy memory, I guess. But yes, her tombstone does say Christmas Day, not the 26th. You don't accidentally call 911 from 970. Erica obviously thinks it's John. Erica, tell us how you really feel.
From our home phone and meant to dial something else. I can't remember.
Yeah, it's 970.
I don't remember if the police came or
The police did come.
they just called us back. But we said, no, that was a mistake, I guess.
Did you ever ask him about it?
Ask Fleet?
Yeah.
No. You know, early on, I was just so crushed. I wished I would die. I was that hurt. People said, did you think about suicide? Well, it crossed my mind, but that would impose more.
Yes, they thought it was a drunken guess, but if you go into the conspiracy theorists, there are theories that Fleet, if you go down the Fleet theory, that he called 911 because he wanted to know how fast that they would respond to the house. I'm sorry, but why doesn't he ask questions? There are a lot of cases where he goes, yeah, I just never asked. Also, though, I do. So this is going to get off topic. I actually just had this conversation with my husband and a friend of ours, our neighbor, and we were talking about the difference between men and women through anything. And we're like, women will ask. And there could be some sort of trauma. And my neighbor was like, yeah, men will just be like, Oh, that sucks. You want to go get a beer in the garage? Like, it's just different.
Or hurt of my children, and that's a dumb thing to do. But I would have been happy to die. I was so devastated. So you don't think about much else, I guess, other than
I agree with you
your
on that,
loss.
Erica, for sure.
And as I say, the fleet stuff was weird, but it didn't fit with who I knew as a person. I remember he didn't react well under stress.
I remember reading this anecdote you had about a sailing with him
Yeah.
and how he just kind of like froze and you
Yeah.
guys had to come get saved by someone.
Well, we'd gotten into really rough weather, and a line that got wrapped around our propeller as we were coming to port. We couldn't steer the boat, and we're getting blown into a big rock wall, and and the weather was blowing like crazy, and we're like, okay, this is the end of the sailboat. We're not going to get killed, but that's going to be the end of the boat. It crashes into that stone wall. And so he just acted very flustered and overwhelmed by difficulty. And so I sort of attributed
Interesting.
some of his behavior to that.
Very interesting.
I don't know.
I know. I think I would just bulldoze through my life. I would probably ruin every relationship I had. Like,
Yeah, but also I think that's the difference between being a man and a woman. I think women, yeah, I don't know. And I can't speak for all men and I can't speak for all women, but I do think that is the difference, right? When you talk to men about certain things and you talk to women about certain things, I will tell you, between my grandparents losing 2 children, my grandmother opened up very late, very like recently, about the children. My grandfather never till the day that he died. He would never say his son's name and he would never say his daughter's name. Oh my God, Lucia! Lucia just gifted 10 That's My Opinion memberships. Oh, Lucia. Holy cow. B-Boy, Hippie Soul, Nicely Done, Magdalena, Texas Beach Mom, Kayla Roslin, and Angel, Gemma Love, Duncan Queen, and Becca Ramirez. You guys, can we get some hype? This is why I need a button that goes. Oh my God. Thank you so much. You guys, some major hype in the chat for Lucia. Holy cow. Thank you so much. Oh my God. That is so kind of you. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Good Lord. Good Lord. Good Lord. I need to get some buttons. I want like confetti to shoot off. How do I get some confetti to shoot off? Mr. Pike, how do I do that? How do I do that in here? Yeah, you know what? I'll get a hype button that shoots off bacon when that happens. It'll just be like little bacon. Making bacon pancakes. Making pancakes. Thank you so much. You guys are the best. Hello, Bacon and Chatters. Better late than never. Watching on 1.5 speed from the beginning on the TV, just saying hello from my phone so I won't really be in chat. Hi, Rich. How are you? Still kindness in this world. Yes. New to your channel and I love it. Thank you, Erica. You guys are the best. Oh my God. Thank you guys so much.
truly, like, it's something I think it would consume me because I think I would pick apart, and maybe these are the
Bacon
people who
bits.
can
Yeah. Oh
survive
my
it and
God.
the people who can't.
My
Because
heart.
I think I would hunt down Fleet White and I would, like, you know what I mean? And I would I
Well-
would pick it apart, even if it was my own child and probably to the detriment of my child. And I think that's what so many people, we think we know what we're gonna do in those situations.
Well, but you can't
And you don't.
assume that. I mean, it's like getting hit by
Thank you, Anna.
a speeding truck.
And you know what? That's a good perspective. I would like to just add this for all of us sitting in the chat, right? And all of us who have, never experienced this and would like to never experience this, and in this way, we can sit here and talk about how we would do things all day long. But until you're truly faced with that crisis, you really have no idea. So she does these more. Oh, I'm going to do them once a week. Also, just so you know, I am going to do members only. I'm going to do members only lives as well, starting now, but because there's people who will be in the lives. But yes, we are going to do members only. New subscriber here. Love your channel. Thank you. I'm so obsessed with this case, and sadly, I feel it'll never be solved, but I hope I'm wrong. I feel that way too.
It's so devastating emotionally. Your system's in shock. I mean,
Yep.
Have you had different theories over the 30 years, or
Well-
has it been pretty much the same, or did it?
I mean, John Douglas's theory when he presented.
Yeah, I've heard of Sloan Bella. And I've heard of that theory. I don't know how I feel. Let me think on that one about how I feel about that. I think it's going to be unsolved until the guilty parties, including those from the cover-ups, are no longer with us. You want Disney karaoke? I'll check out. I'll give you Disney karaoke. You want it?
None of that
You
to
got
me
it.
was sobering. It's like,
Who hates you that much? Like that.
well, that's what I said to John. I said, we had 700 employees. I knew most of them, but not all of them. We've had to fire some for different
I
reasons.
believe Fleet is still alive.
But since
yes.
I was the president, I guess conceivably they could blame me for the loss of their job, let's say. But I said, I've never made anybody that mad. I can't imagine that. And he said, you may not even know them. They read about you in the paper. They observed we were, Boulder's a very liberal, far left community. And,
What does that mean?
well, very, it's described jokingly as 32 square miles surrounded by reality.
Yes, to be
And we knew that going in. We were capitalists. We were businesses, capitalists.
It's Lucia, it's in the about of my thing. My
They're not really welcome.
my channel.
Here. It was the feeling we got. But
That would be amazing, by the way. What?
who could do this to a child?
Agree.
But anyway, John has lots of credit on his resume to being right.
Between him and your PIs, have you over the years come to at least your best working theory of what you think happened? Like the order, what was staged?
Oh, I think the person came into our home when we were gone that evening, went out for dinner, was there when we got home, and waited for us to go to bed. That same scenario happened about 9 months later in the same neighborhood with a little friend of JonBenét's. Fortunately, the mother interrupted it.
Oh, this is
Which
the
means
girl that knew her.
Very potentially the same person. Police blew it off as the same. But I know the father of that second little girl absolutely felt there's a lot of similarities. They knew that the killer was in the house, or fortunately the child wasn't killed, but they came home, same that we did, set the burglar alarm, went to bed. So the killer the bad guy had to be in the house
Waiting.
when they got home.
So you think he's in the house waiting? Mm-hmm. And then what?
And then we went to bed, and we believe that, as do experts, that a stun gun was used to silence JonBenét. She was taken down the basement.
So you think that he went up to her room first, got her there, and then took her to the basement?
Yeah.
And do you have any? And I know this is like a little bit of details I know you've lived with for a long time. Do they have any ideas about what the intention was? Like what some of the sexual activity, some of the choking was like to cover something up?
Lou Smith, this detective that was brought out of retirement, legendary detective in Colorado, solved over 200 homicides. Amazing man.
Yeah.
was brought in by the DA because I think the DA suspected the police had it kind of messed up. Lou spent a couple of months looking at the evidence and very conclusively, in his mind, said, no, there's lots of evidence of it.
So Erica said that there was a girl who was part of the pageant life who you would never guess. There was someone who just came out and she had tattoos and piercing, looked nothing like she did in her pageant days, and they ran in the same circle. Do you have her name? Because I would like to look into that.
Intruder, his theory was it was a kidnapping gone wrong based on the evidence. And I've always thought those two conflicted.
So socially, when they talk about the stun gun in the railroad tracks, there is somebody who you can look it up online that actually puts the prongs of the railroad tracks next to the prongs of the stun gun, and it still shows that the railroad tracks are more consistent with those marks than the actual stun gun.
Between John Douglas's theory and Lou's, but somebody pointed out to me, well, no, they don't necessarily conflict.
Is Fleet available for interviews? He does not want to come on. Nobody wants to come on this channel to get interviewed because I'm not here to make friends, Kristen.
And it's like, yeah, you're right.
Do they think that the person wrote the note while that he's in the house waiting for you guys to come
Yeah.
home?
John Douglas said nobody could write a 3-page ransom note after murdering a child.
Okay, so that's done earlier.
Their warped brain is going crazy. And he said that note was written before.
Where do you assume it went wrong? So if he wrote this note to get her out, like why does he take her to the basement, you think?
Well, there was, I don't know. I mean, she was sexually assaulted, apparently. There was a suitcase. When the so-called detective that was there that day said, well, go look through the house, see if you see anything unusual. And I reported to her that I went to the basement. There was a suitcase standing up on its bottom under a window, and the window was open. I said, that suitcase shouldn't be there. It looks like it may have been a step to get out of the house. And apparently they found, and I don't know this for a fact, but there's so much information out there, you don't know what's right and what's wrong, but they apparently found fibers from JonBenét's clothing in the suitcase, along with a doll or something. And Lou's theory was they may have tried to get her out of the house in the suitcase, and it went wrong, and it didn't work. I don't know.
When you first saw the window, because you had gone down initially, but you said when you first saw the window, you didn't think to mention it.
No,
You
I
did?
did immediately, yeah. Yeah, the window was open, and it had a pane broken in it, and the suitcase propped up underneath. And I told Linda Arndt, the detective, I said, look, that suitcase should not be there.
And you told her this.
So let me get this straight. Okay, so the intruder is in the house before they even get home. They all go to bed. He gets JonBenét out of the bed, takes her downstairs, tries to shove her into the suitcase, but that doesn't work. Okay. When the police searched the house, the lock was at the top of the door, and John went down there and unlocked the door and got his daughter. Yes. However, Stephen, it is important to remember that when the police got to the house, they said that the door was locked or blocked and chose not to go in it. But then I believe Fleet, because it's redacted in Linda Arndt's report, Fleet opened the door and was able to get in, but somehow didn't see her. I agree. I like this theory too. And now there's tension. So actually, Melinda, it's funny because I think we brought this up yesterday. Because everybody's like, why, if John was truly involved, why would he keep like trying to get this solved, trying to get this going, right? And the thing is like, what if he knows that, you know, who it is. And he, like, you know, can't say because there's also stuff that he's intertwined in, you know, just a theory. Don't try to make sense of what he said because it does not make sense. Suitcase was staging and too far from the wall to keep it steady for a step. Interesting. Well, there is like a smeared shoe print that goes down the wall a little bit. I race sailboats, and I can tell you one thing for sure: being in the Navy does not mean you know how to sail a sailboat. Okay. Very interesting about using the suitcase to try to move her. The whole crime scene just reeks of panic and desperation. His story sounds like BS. A question you had was, how does JR move the body? Isn't it a known fact that he was missing for over an hour? He was like in and out of Linda Arndt's eyesight. So I don't know exactly for an hour. But a question, yeah, how did he move the body? Somebody had alluded to the fact that maybe they hid her body in like a crawl space and then brought her out. But you have to remember, she was in rigor mortis, and it's not that easy to just like throw around a body, you know, or especially a body that's dead weight.
Before you guys found JonBenét?
Yeah. I said, maybe that window was broken by me. I don't know, but it shouldn't have been open, and that suitcase shouldn't have been there. And
Lucy, I have to say, I find it very interesting that the pineapple, when it comes to John Ramsey, never comes up. Never comes up.
And of course, the police came out and said, well, a human couldn't get through that window. Well, I did it. Lou Smith did it.
I saw Lou Smith.
It's crazy.
Example.
They were so focused on convicting Patsy or me that nothing else mattered. And then in January, they had sent some evidence in for DNA sampling.
Johnny Andrews, interesting.
And the report came back middle of January. We've recovered unidentified male DNA from JonBenét's clothing. Does not match anyone in the family. John, Patsy, and Burke are excluded.
Yeah, the first one I think that they found, it was from a blood spot in the underwear.
Exactly,
and
Elja,
it was her blood, but it was what they determined, at least based on enzymes, like saliva within the blood spot.
No, Conscious, I believe the suitcase had his son's stuff inside of it. It was his stuff from college inside of the room.
Those are the first things that they tested and ruled the family out.
Right. Well, the police kept that a secret from the DA for 6 months because it conflicted with their conclusion. It's like, first question the defense attorney would ask is, whose DNA is that? Oh, we don't know, but it doesn't matter. Well, it does matter. Male DNA found in a sexual assault case is a huge clue.
And they do eventually go back and get another sample that they put into CODIS from it. They get a large enough profile to put in CODIS, right?
Right. They actually had, the first sample was CODIS qualified as well. A new DA came in and set up her own investigative unit on this case, took the case away from the police. Now, they didn't position it that way in the media. It was like, oh, we want fresh eyes.
What's going on with the stream,
I believe
guys?
she took it away from the police, brought Lou
I don't know
Smith
what's
back
happening.
in, who had left because he was disgusted with the direction it was going. And they started to investigate it again. And she did additional DNA testing.
And this is like in 2008?
Yeah. And that supported the earlier DNA sampling, that it was an unidentified male DNA and had no explanation. Police tried very hard to explain it away. They even tried to get the county to pay for them to go to China.
I followed that one.
They wanted to go to China
Right.
and start sampling.
But then when they really honed in on, oh no, this isn't just like everywhere on the underwear, it's just in the blood spots, and we're showing these enzymes that show up in high levels with saliva.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know, I did learn a little bit about DNA.
Okay, we're good. You guys can see me? Okay. Sorry, I don't, you know what? I'm doing it through YouTube with my account, but next time I'll just do it with a stream key to just make sure it's a smooth. I don't know why this is happening. Honestly, this is the first time I've ever just streamed to YouTube. What is happening? Why does my face look like that? Oh my God. It's not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. What's happening? Okay, how do I change this? Hold on, let me see if I can change it in the settings. Oh my God, what is happening? Minecraft, less pixels. It's on and off. It's very. Why I don't. Guys, I'm so sorry. I believe John's oldest son was excluded. Don't give up, chat. It's too good. Give it a minute, pretty please. No, I'll give it a minute. I have another 20 minutes that I can be here. I just don't understand why. Mr. Pike, do you have any idea on how I could finish? Bitrate is lower than the recommended bitrate. I changed the bitrate. How do I do that? Stream. Output. The bitrate is 6,800. Because we're too close, Teresa. Yeah, all right, guys. I'll make sure that the next stream is in the thing. I don't know why this is happening. I am so sorry. But you know what? Sometimes that's just what happens, you know? Sometimes I stream and Mercury is in Gatorade, and that's just what happens.
And it's complicated.
It's very complicated.
Really complicated.
2008, they do touch DNA on the side of her long john pants, basically saying, like, we think that whoever would have pulled her pants down might have done it here. They get 2 profiles, 1 from each side. They're not nearly as big as the one that went into CODIS, but they say they're consistent with that one.
Right.
And I heard the same thing where they're saying, like, in no other case have I seen where you see this much DNA of someone else, and we're not looking for someone else.
Right.
When they ended up testing the nylon rope that was around her neck,
I don't know if they ever did. I don't know that.
they tested the rope,
Okay.
but not the wooden handle itself. And the rope came back with an unknown sample,
I didn't know that.
but it didn't match the other ones. And I don't know what that means. Like, has anyone ever
Well,
considered that
Lou
there's-
Smith, and Lou told me, first of all, Lou said, I'll get this guy, John. I'll get him. And he has a track record
of getting them?
of getting him. And sadly, he died of cancer. He believed there were more than one person involved.
Thank you guys for being so
But he
patient.
also said,
I have to say that Lou Smith has also like turned this over to his children, and they're now on this to, like, you know, try to change it.
look, there's things I know that only the killer knows, and I'm not going to tell you what those are. I'm not going to tell anybody, but
Did it die with him?
it may have. I'm not sure. Lou had an extensive database of
Thank you,
information
guys.
that now some of his former homicide detective colleagues have formed a group to finish Lou's work. Lou said, this is a DNA case. It'll be solved by DNA.
Have you ever asked to see
But
all
maybe
of
it's
his
not.
materials? I mean, at one time you were paying him.
Well, it's huge.
I wonder if, you know, if the DNA, like, and it's interesting because I would love to watch Crime Junkies. It's a 3-hour podcast, but I would love to watch their podcast about, has the DNA led us astray? And I almost wonder if maybe that's the case. Farkle Beans. I love your name. Farkle Beans.
Pardon?
I mean, one time you were paying Lou, right? Lou Smith?
No. Lou would. I tried to buy Lou an ice cream cone one day. He wouldn't let me do it. He was that honorable.
Sybil. Ugh.
No, I didn't pay him.
So you never asked to see his stuff?
Well-
I couldn't help it. I would want to.
The only thing about that, Marie, is I think that there were people in and around the house if you're talking about like somebody like Sybil, or if you're talking about, you know, punishment for accidents, I don't see somebody just doing that one day, right? Like, and they always had a maid or they always had a house cleaner or whatever. I think if there was any abuse that was going on in the house, somebody would have seen something. You know what I mean?
Well, it was voluminous.
Yeah.
And the group that took over, and they're doing it on their own, they've taken Lou's list and they're starting to go down the list and get
Checking people
DNA.
out. Mm-hmm.
Adults of
And
the pageant girls. I'm
that
gonna write
costs
that down.
money. And so they've raised money over time to pay for the DNA testing, but they're not any of their expenses or anything. It's all on their own. And I'm so grateful for that. You know, Lou felt that he had a good enough sample early on that is the killer's DNA. You need 9 markers out of 15 to be submittable to the database, the federal database.
You're right. Socially,
You
they
probably
did
know a
not.
lot
The
more
grand
about
jury
this
did
than I
not buy
do,
Lou Smith's
I'm
theory.
learning.
And that's the thing. I really wish that's a question. I hope that's a question that gets asked. The grand jury did say that they had enough to indict you on probable cause for child abuse and putting your child in a position that resulted in death. What are your thoughts? I really do think that that's a question that needs to be asked to John.
They determined with these 15 particular markers, it's like 100% match, 15 out of billions. And we had 9 of 15, and 9 was the threshold at which they would admit it to the COVID database is good enough.
I wonder if it's still in there because I know
It's in CODIS.
back in the 90s, the database was less. It was lower at 9. And then over the years, I believe they've raised it to be like 13. And,
Is that right?
And I've seen other cases where because it no longer meets the new standard, it drops out and people didn't even realize that it's not
That's very
in there
possible.
anymore.
I don't know.
So here's the thing. I do know that the DNA is in CODIS. Now what? Jesus Christ. I don't know what's happening. What would be needed to indict based on probable cause? So here's the thing. The podcast that I had posted in the comment section of my, or the community tab in my on my channel, that podcast goes into why they indicted on probable cause, but they could not indict beyond reasonable doubt, which is why they didn't charge the Ramseys in the first place. Because as a DA, like, you have to make sure that you can absolutely charge these guys. What was the question I was going to
people
ask?
didn't even realize
Hold on.
because it no longer meets the new standard, it drops out and people didn't even realize that it's not
That's very
in there
possible.
anymore.
I don't know.
Be interesting. It's something else.
So the other thing that this podcast, this Mile Higher podcast, touches on is the fact that the DNA markers, I think, only have 9 markers. They're still in CODIS. And what they want to do is they want to do like genealogy. They want to do family testing because now we have access. That's actually one of the things that they were able to match with like Brian Koberger, is the fact that they were able to put it into this genealogy like ancestry.com, and they were to make all of these matches through cousins, through close relatives, and then they got the garbage from his dad's house, and they got his dad Michael's DNA, and they found that Michael is most likely the father of whoever left the knife sheath at the house. And then they were able to test Brian Koberger. I go over it. Honestly, it's fascinating. But that's what they want to do now, is not so much put it into CODIS as they want to test the DNA and put it in like family genealogy stuff.
I'll need to look into.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't know that they raised the threshold, but
I don't know
Did they
about
ever
the Gilgo
test
Beach killer.
JonBenét's bathroom. Someone had gone to the bathroom and not flushed. Did they ever test that? Do you know?
I don't know.
Seems like a perfect sample for DNA, and I don't know if they tested and it was hers or
Well,
matter.
you know, the forensics people only spent 2 hours in our house after JonBenét was found looking for evidence. The DA said, get your, what, back in there. 2 hours is not enough. So they went back. I don't know how long they spent when they went back. They did find, they recovered the evidence, some evidence, and a palm print that didn't match anybody on the door
Hello, Blossom.
going into that room where JonBenét was found.
Didn't match anyone? I thought they saw Patsy's and JonBenét's, but Patsy was, I know, wrapping presents in that room and stuff like that.
Well, we'd go in and out of that room. It was a storage room. We
Yeah.
called it the wine cellar, but there wasn't
Was no wine.
no wine. It was just an old coal cellar.
I don't think I realized that was an unidentified print.
As far as I know, that's still unidentified, as there was in the same case 9 months later, unidentified palm print.
I did read that there was an unidentified palm print that was on that door.
Did they check them? No.
You're talking about in the other case in the
That
same
was very
neighborhood?
similar to JonBenét.
I think in the reporting they call her Amy.
Yeah, they blew that off as similar. Because as the police chief said, there's so many quotes I could give you that they said were just nuts. First was, well, we didn't treat JonBenét's abduction as a crime scene. We thought it was a kidnapping.
That's a crime.
It's a crime, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
On the little girl, the police chief came out and said, well, they're not the same because the second little girl wasn't killed.
Because her mom walked in.
And mom interrupted it. It's just nuts we're dealing with. And that's a real fundamental problem with our system.
Eldrick,
That
you do
little
not want
Boulder,
that.
Colorado Police Department's island of authority. People can't come on that island and help unless they're invited. And Boulder Police never invited anybody to come in and help. Lots of
Lucy, I'll write it down.
That's the fundamental problem with our system.
Yes, Cuff, they did do polygraph tests. Although if you, Steve Thomas, who was the detective on the case, said that, that's another question that she should ask. When they said that they, went and they gave the police everything that they wanted to, I would say, you know what? I agree with you. You went in, you gave DNA, you gave hair samples, you gave handwriting samples. There's one thing that I want to talk to you about is the polygraph tests. You guys went and did polygraphs. Patsy had to take 3 different polygraph tests. Can you explain to me why that was? I have
Would
so
that
many
be
questions.
your hope with JonBenét's case? Like who,
Sure.
in a perfect world, who would you want to take over?
Well, early on, we didn't care who had it. We just wanted it out of the police hands because we knew they were, A, focused on us and B, incompetent. Give it to the sheriff's department. We didn't care. Just get it out of their hands because they're not capable. We would like the evidence to be turned over to the FBI and let the FBI
Marie,
run
that's
with the
true.
evidence, do some additional DNA testing.
So where do you think the evidence is? Do they still have it? What do you think is still can be tested? What can we?
That's the question. So Blossom asked, my question is if the intruder came into the house, then why didn't the son say anything when he was downstairs? And in this interview, he goes into the fact that he was like, oh, I never knew Burke was downstairs, but Burke admitted it on Dr. Phil. It was a very weird exchange when they talked about that. Was the older son visiting for the holiday? That I don't know.
We pull this.
Well, we were told, we know from looking at reports and stuff early on in January '97, there were a number of items sent into a lab. Some were returned untested. Don't know why. Whether it's a cost issue or they had a sample. They did get a sample of what they tested. Maybe they decided that's good enough. I don't know. We want those other items tested. We want the items that had previously been tested 15 years ago, most recently, retested.
All right, guys, I'm just giving you about a 5-minute warning. I have to go pick up my daughter from school soon. So just letting you guys know.
Developing this new format that's needed.
We'll
to
put this in
do the
2.0.
genealogy
We'll put this
research.
faster.
That's what we're asking. So as far as we know, there's items that are crime scene evidence that was taken from the crime scene, sent to a lab that was never tested.
It seems pretty straightforward. Like, what do you feel is? Because to me, on the outside, I'm like, why wouldn't Boulder want to solve its biggest case?
There's only 2 logical reasons. One is they've lost the evidence, which I hope isn't true. Or 2, they're protecting somebody that is very that's a silly number 2. But I can't think of any other reason.
Losing the evidence, I never even thought about that. You're just like, oh, please have evidence. Yeah. Well, after this much time, what if they didn't?
They've lost the evidence.
Do you feel like, I mean, you're somebody who has like
Do this in one
amazing
cup.
connections and
One big
political
cup.
pull. Like, Do you feel like there's anything that you can do, or you've tried it all? Like where?
We've tried a lot. We petitioned the Attorney General in Colorado. We petitioned the governor. This is early on to meet with us, and they wouldn't meet with us.
You think this would be a great case for someone to? I mean, if they're gonna at least work the system, you could solve the JonBenét Ramsey case.
Well, you'd think so. And I've told Boulder's had 5 police chiefs since this happened.
Have you met with the newest one yet?
Yeah.
Was this ever handed over to the FBI?
Does he say anything about whether they have the evidence, don't have the evidence? Are you waiting?
I've never challenged him on, have you lost it?
Ah, what do you mean, John?
Well, I've got another meeting coming up.
Yeah.
Well, the first meeting,
This is the
I was
stuff.
trying to be a nice guy and not.
Yeah, thank you. What do you mean? What do you mean you've never challenged them on if they lost it?
Jump all over him. He was a new guy at his job. I liked him. We had a nice conversation. It was like, I need to.
What does he say? Where does he say stand?
Well, he says there's things happening I can't tell you about, and I think DNA testing isn't there yet. We want to wait. And I totally disagree with the last comment. We're going to ask the.
Well, I do have to say, so again, if you watch the Mile Higher podcast, he will talk about how the fact that when you test DNA, it is destroyed. And they don't have a lot of DNA in this case, as far as the unidentified male. So they have to be very careful with how they move forward, because every time they test it, they, yeah, I don't know. Gotta go. Bye, Liam.
It's a hard question. Have you, and you didn't lose it. You're the new guy. It's not your fault. But is the evidence still in your possession? Where is it?
And if it's not there, what does that make you think?
Well, it confirms my opinion that the Boulder Police was a pretty dysfunctional organization for years,
Does that mean-
frankly.
Does that mean it's just over for you guys? Like,
Well, that's a huge thing, yeah, to have, if that's the case, because we have the technology, in my opinion, privately to do testing that I really believe.
Lucy, I
has a
got
good
it written
chance of
down.
leading to the answer.
do you think it's someone, whether you recognize them or not, someone that would have had some kind of interaction with your daughter before?
Well, I think the person had been in our house before,
Yes.
no question. We have this car guy, Mark Carr. We've had 2 people that said, well, I saw that guy around you. I know it's him. Our house, we had a lady that would come into our little house.
But
up
he
in
wasn't
Michigan
there at the time.
and clean it once in a while before we got there. And
They
she
checked his
called after
alibi. He
became
was
public
in-
and said, that guy was in your garage this past summer.
How do you make sense
Not
of
in
that
a-
if the DNA?
In
Well,
Atlanta?
I don't know.
At the
I
time?
don't know.
Does that make you go back and question the DNA?
Well, I asked Lou that question. I said, do you believe that this is the killer's DNA for sure? He said, yes, I believe that.
Okay.
So,
Erica,
okay.
that's a very
Based
interesting.
on that, well, the other thing she said was, when I was in your home that day, somebody had been staying in JonBenét's room. There was a suitcase open, and obviously somebody was staying in your room. I thought you'd given someone permission to stay in your home. Didn't think of it. When this guy came out, she said, I saw him in the garage, and then she told us about somebody staying in our home. I said, no, we didn't give anybody permission to stay in our home. And why would they pick JonBenét's room? If you're gonna squat in a house, you wouldn't have picked that room. It's second floor, way in the back. You couldn't get out of there easily if you were caught.
I think new testing is going to be important. I don't know if you have thoughts or feelings on, have you seen all the stuff that's been happening with like the Colorado State lab?
Yeah.
Do you have any concerns? So Missy Woods, I believe is her name, she's been accused of like falsifying, like 600 and some cases between like 2008 and 23. They're looking at
Oh
even
my
older cases.
God.
Is this something that you've talked to anyone in authority about? Like, do you have concern that it affects the testing that you guys had done?
We were told, our attorneys looked into it, and they're still working on the case for us for free. They don't charge us. They're so committed to getting this righted. They said she was not involved in our testing
That's good.
back then. It's like, okay. So that's the information we have.
That's really good. What's it going to take to do new testing?
Well, what we were told probably a year or so ago now, it's been over a year. At that time, we just accidentally met the head of the FBI region there. And he said, look, the government, we, the FBI, certainly not Boulder, not CBI, do not have the latest DNA technology yet.
And who said that?
The chief of police.
Because they got a new one, right? Or is this
Well,
the
the
last
current
one? The current one.
Yeah. Get the evidence into their hands. And let's see what they come up with. They have also the ability to do the genealogy research, create this family
Right.
tree.
Yep. Even to give you, I mean, the phenotyping that they can do to answer the question of, okay, we know it's a male profile, but is it a white man?
Right.
Is it not?
I don't know what else to do. But if they don't do that, then that's unacceptable. It's ridiculous. It's there, can be done. I've offered to pay for it. I don't know what the issue is. I really don't. The why they won't do all that can be done.
I'll have to ask some questions of them.
Yeah, we're going to get a little more hard-nosed in our next meeting. First question be, do you have the evidence? Be honest. Have you lost it? Where is it? Who has it?
Sounds like a good next step.
Yeah. Right now, in my mind, that's the key question. Why? Where is it? If you're not going to test it, why?
I
It's
agree.
baffling. Absolutely baffling to me. And, maybe it's down to police departments don't like to admit they've been wrong or they've screwed up. And I can't believe that with the new police chief. I mean, he didn't cause that problem. He didn't mess it up.
Do you think they're afraid of opening themselves up to litigation?
Possibly. Very possibly.
True.
Do you think you would sue them, or
I
are
don't
you?
know. I explored that early on because we were again told they knew it was one of the parents, had to be one of the parents, always the parents, and that's a flawed conclusion.
There's no one theory that makes everything make sense.
No, not really. I don't know. Lou said this is
Christy,
a
I
DNA
agree
case.
with
It'll be
you.
solved by DNA. Period. And that's why this testing is so important. I don't know. You know, I used to Patsy when we
Can you
traveled.
get a
Carrie took always.
Can you get a lawyer to press the police? Like, I don't understand. Like, if you truly think, and if you believe Lou Smith, right, and you truly believe that this case could be solved by DNA, I just don't understand why you wouldn't push that further to get that done. But with that being said, you guys watch the rest of this on your own. I have to say, you guys have been great. This has been wonderful. I am going to change it around a little bit so that we don't have any like weird stuff going on when I stream. But I do have to leave because it's time for me to be a mom instead of a detective. So it's time for me to go. I will be doing lives once a week. I've decided with the turnout, you guys have been incredible. The reception to this, the reception of my channel has been amazing. Also, I will start doing the members only lives because we have members now, which is so crazy to me. You guys are awesome. And doing like all the members only posts and whatever. If you can't become a member, please, 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 just liking, viewing, being around is amazing. And, you know, I love you guys and it's been incredible. And I don't know. So I would like to do, you know what, I'll make a poll, or if you guys could just let me know like what day would be best for you guys to be in the chat. I did like a Thursday afternoon. That's a nice little break up to the week. But while my kids are on vacation, I'm going to try to do it on Sundays. So that way, you know, I can have somebody watch the children while they run amok and we talk about crime. And also, with that being said, I have to leave. You guys are amazing. Bye-bye.